Look, the dynamic duo!
Guys, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It actually helps our algorithm. It helps build the channel. We're trying to build this channel. Please hit the like and subscribe button, if I can say it. And this leads us to another discussion, Kevin. And that discussion, guys, join us for that discussion. But that discussion is X-Men 97. And X-Men 97 to me did it right. And it was very, very hopeful to me because I thought, whoa, is Marvel getting it? And are they doing what they're supposed to do? And I'll explain to you exactly my point of view of what I mean by they're doing it right. So let's talk about X-Men 97 for a little bit. What's your take on X-Men 97? How did you like X-Men 97?
I like it. I do like the way that they have reassembled a lot of the original cast and the group at large. And this is gonna sound weird, so forgive me ahead of time, partner. My only issue with this new one, and even going back to the classic one from the Fox days, is the makers of this, even though I enjoy it, but I read comics. I follow a lot of the X-Men, maybe not all of it, but a lot. The thing is, in my opinion, along the line of what I said a few minutes ago about the Fantastic Four and other projects, is there needs to be one episode, maybe two, where you honestly see Professor Xavier building the team as an origin story. If you think back, we never got that even in the old days. And they do it now. And although I like what I'm seeing, I think it's a mistake for a lot of these things just to assume every time that the audience already knows what this is, and this stuff does not have to be introduced to them. The thing that, in my opinion, as a creator, meaning whether it's animation or live action, comics have been in trouble for years building new audiences. Part of the reason why you have this problem is because you're not telling the audience what in the world is going on. When you go back to the original X-Men cartoon, it started as a two-parter with the Sentinels right off the bat. They almost did the same thing with this new piece. Even if you tell the story in flashback, I really think it would help them story-wise and everything else to boot if they would say, okay, this is the X-Men and this is how we got here.
So that's very, very interesting to me. And again, and I say this often, and I say, I couldn't agree with you more. And let me tell the audience what I mean. I couldn't agree with you more that the way to handle the X-Men, whether cinematically or through cartoons, is to start with the origin, to build that relationship, to give, the new audience the relationship that you and I have had with the X-Men. That is to say, you get to understand and care about the characters, the origins of the characters, and grow with them so their experiences become much more significant to us. And I do think that the original X-Men, that sort of initial creation would be, first of all, interesting, compelling, and a great way to stretch out that franchise. Think about it. You can have literally X-Men for the next 20 years, Kevin, because if you start off with the original team, we're talking about Cyclops, Angel, Iceman, the Beast, and Marvel Girl. There, you can do 2, 3, 4 movies with that team, and 2, 3, 4 solid, huge movies. You got Magnetos, you've got the Savage Land, you've got Juggernaut, you've got the Sentinels. I mean, you can do solid movies with that, and that's a good 10 years, right? And then you could transfer into the Uncanny X-Men, which is the new team, and that would create a whole new level of excitement. That would give you another 10 to 15 years of material. I mean, there's a lot of material when it comes to the Uncanny X-Men. Then this is where it goes, and it would kick it up another notch. You don't have to start out with the billion-dollar blockbuster. That's a mistake that we're making too, by the way. We're judging these movies like if they don't make $1 billion, they're a failure. That's stupid, okay? The MCU created this whole thing, but it's a standard that we do not need to live up to, okay? Because only a very few, very few movies make $1 billion at the box office. Certainly in the first few weeks of its release. So let's build up to the $1 billion. Let's be smart rather than risk it all. So I agree with that 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Having said that, I don't think I take that as a criticism for X-Men 97, because I take that as a separate thing. So X-Men 97 was created in 97, and they're continuing that storyline. And so looking at it from that project, like how do we continue X-Men 97? I think they couldn't have done a better job. I really, really couldn't. As you know, I don't think X-Men 97 is any good. I think it's a horrible, horrible cartoon. I really do. And I know it's beloved, and I know that it's had a huge impact. I get all that. And critiquing something from a point of quality or not quality doesn't mean that you shouldn't love it. Like, I don't think Batman 66 should win any kind of Academy Awards anytime soon. I love me some Batman 66. I love me some, so it doesn't, loving something and critiquing are two different things. The X-Men 97, in my opinion, and I think it's a factual opinion, was awful. The animation was bad. The acting was poor. The one great thing about X-Men 97 is that I'm not going to say that it was faithful to the comics, because a lot of the stories were changed slightly. It wasn't exactly the same as the comic book, but it definitely brought the comic books to life. The costumes were the same. It's basically seeing the comic book page in a cartoon format, and that I love, and that I give it credit for, and I appreciate. I wish the movies would continue along those lines, and I wish that X-Men 97 is a catalyst for the X-Men movies. I'm hoping that that the MCU will see the reaction that people have had to the cartoon and say, wow, this is what the audience needs, and therefore let's transfer that to the live action. I doubt that's going to be the case, but that's my hope. So why do I think X-Men 97 is perfect? I think it's perfect because they did it. In the world that we talked about before, where there's a lot of AIWs, anti-inclusivity warriors, who are coming from Marvel, man, I was so pissed off. I was mad. I was livid. Because when the X-Men 97 cartoon was announced and the trailers was released, Kevin, the AIWs were coming hard for it. It's a dangerous thing. And I've done a show where I kind of ranted about this. It's a dangerous thing. Comic book fans and superhero movie fans have become detrimental to the genre, because we're judging movies before they're released based on our agenda, whatever that agenda may be. Either it's quote unquote too woke or not woke enough. And for whatever reason, the AIW crowd has had it for Disney and for the MCU, and they're trying to literally destroy it. by accusing everything of being bad if there's a hint of wokeness. And so I was really, really mad because, you know, we're objective. And when there's a problem, for example, we discussed Norrin Radd and Shalabal becoming a Silver Surfer, I and you will cite that problem. But when there isn't a problem, you shouldn't create a problem. And so when the trailer for the X-Men 97, these guys, Kevin, were pausing. They were literally pausing a second thing and saying, oh my God, Rogue doesn't have an ass. They went woke. Oh my God. And it's such a ridiculous accusation that it ticked me off. And so what do I mean when I say that X-Men 97 did it? What they did was they produced a show that even the AIWs had to shut up about, because there's no hint of any kind of, you've got an issue, you've got a complaint. There isn't. They brought the comic book and they had a perfect transition to the continuation of the story. And they're doing it with a animation style that is reminiscent of the classic, but that's actually good. Mm-hmm. The classic is just not good. The art is just not good. There's over dramatic, where are we gonna go? You know, and so it had that perfect continuation. It eliminated all the complaints and all the nagging that the AIWs, like there's nothing that these guys can say. They can't even accuse that Rogue ass thing. They were like, oh, Beast doesn't look like the Beast. No, that's not true. None of it is true. And yet, the message is there. It's beautiful. You can't, it is actually truly woke. That is the right definition of wokeness, because wokeness is actually just an awareness that there are inequalities on this planet and that we just need to be aware of that. It's nothing more or less than that. It's not an agenda it's just to say, hey, listen, you need to understand that there's inequalities in the world and that some people suffer the end of it. And so that animation has that message strongly without offending or giving any kind of fodder for that AIW crowd to attack it. One other thing that I love about 97 is that, at least with episode 2, there's a level of sophistication that I absolutely love. I mean, this was a complex, deep story that wasn't simplistic, and it was thought-provoking. And so when Magneto takes the council, the UN council, and brings them up and says, listen, and he makes that threat and he says, don't let me let you down. I thought that was a beautiful speech. I thought it was intellectual, complex, deep, philosophical. And so the combination of action, superheroism, costumes, superpowers with complexity, that's what I've always loved about comic books. And so I just applaud 97 every which way but loose. And I hope that it serves as an incentive to teach Marvel how to do it by not changing Silver Surfer into a female. Please let that be a rumor.
I gotta tell you, I literally leaped out of my chair and jumped to my feet when they allowed Cyclops to do the "come to me, my X-Men."
That was awesome. And by the way, here's a very, very important lesson in 97 that we in Marvel, the MCU, and Kevin Feige needs to learn. It is a mistake, Kevin, to make the X-Men about Wolverine. It is not about Wolverine.
The man.
Wolverine is a character.
Thank you.
Wolverine is a character within the X-Men. He steals the show, absolutely. But if you think that means it's Wolverine in the X-Men, which, by the way, I happen to love that cartoon. It was really, really good. But if you think it's Wolverine in the X-Men, you're making a mistake. You're making an absolute mistake. The core of the X-Men is Cyclops, okay? It is Cyclops. And Cyclops has to be the foundation of the X-Men, in a way even more so than Xavier, as being depicted in 97, because Xavier is not even there. So yeah, to me, my X-Men said by Cyclops was pretty powerful. And having that contrast of Cyclops being the straight man and Wolverine being the counterpoint, that's magic. If you make Wolverine the man, then he's just a bully on Cyclops, and it doesn't work the same way. And so the X-Men franchise were not as successful, as beloved as they are by some. They were a fraction of what the MCU was able to produce. They were a fraction of what Spider-Man was able to produce. I remember arguing back in the day, the X-Men franchise was a failure, relatively speaking, because the X-Men were making half the money that Spider-Man is making. So that formula of Wolverine, black costume, toned down powers, that doesn't work. What works is 97. My only regret is that we're missing some of those beautiful, excellent stories of the past. We won't get to see those stories like the Dark Phoenix saga in the beautiful, better cartoon and better acting quality wise.
Understood.